The silence from the gurus is finally being broken, but not by the rumors you're used to hearing. This time, the updates are coming from Baghdad, from Washington, and from the border crossings where the ASYCUDA system is changing everything. U.S. influence, a customs crackdown, and the quiet preparation of the dinar itself. These are the real stories the guru community is just beginning to understand. Let me start with the most significant development of the week. On February 11, the Director General of the Iraqi General Customs Authority, Thamer Qasim, made an announcement that should be on the front page of every financial website. He confirmed that the Kurdistan region has begun responding to the unification of customs tariffs with federal border crossings. He announced advanced understandings with the region to implement the ASYCUDA electronic customs system across all points of entry. This is the ASYCUDA crackdown that the gurus are talking about. For years, one of the largest leaks in Iraq's financial system was the differential between federal and Kurdistan region customs duties. Traders would import goods through the region, pay lower tariffs, and then smuggle those goods into federal Iraq without paying the difference. The dollars that should have flowed into the central bank's reserves instead flowed into private pockets. That leak is now being sealed. Qasim was explicit about who is affected by this change. He stated that those affected are traders operating outside the customs and tax systems, as their financial transfers are not registered in the ASYCUDA system and they lack tax accountability. Entry into ASYCUDA requires both an import license and a tax identification. This is what preparation looks like. The government is not targeting innocent merchants, it is targeting operators who have been evading taxes and moving money outside the formal system. And it is doing so with a tool that makes evasion impossible. The ASYCUDA electronic platform provides accurate, real-time information, eliminates estimation and human interference, and contributes to combating money laundering. On February 10th, Governor Ali Alaq sat down with Ruda and Erbil and delivered the most important monetary policy statement of the year. To the casual observer, it sounded like bad news for dinar holders. Alaq stated flatly that the central bank is not studying the topic of changing the exchange rate. He called market speculation great confusion and misplaced. He dismissed any link between the budget deficit and currency adjustment as an incorrect link. But you must learn to read what central bankers do not say. Alaq did not say the rate is fixed forever. He did not say the rate reflects the true value of the currency. He said the central bank is not currently studying a change. That is a statement about the present, not the future. And more importantly, he spent the rest of that interview describing, in extraordinary detail, exactly what the central bank is doing to prepare the dinar for a stable future. Let me give you the numbers that matter from that interview. Alaq revealed that Iraq's foreign reserves now exceed $100 billion, including more than 76 tons of gold. The money supply stands at approximately 100 trillion dinars. But here is the number that reveals the scale of the preparation. More than 80% of that money supply exists outside the banking system. 80%. Trillions of dinars circulating in the shadow economy, invisible to tax authorities, unavailable for productive lending, and entirely beyond the reach of monetary policy. This is not a sign of a healthy economy. This is a sign of systematic evasion. And Alaq was remarkably candid about the cause, primarily linked to the phenomenon of tax evasion and non-disclosure of revenue levels, profits and income that are achieved, especially in the trade sector. Alaq explained the preparation with unusual clarity. If money owners feel reassured about the existence of a fair and transparent tax system, they will bring their money and deposit it in banks. Reassurance. That is the product that the ASYCUDA crackdown is designed to manufacture. When the shadow economy can no longer operate, when tax evasion becomes impossible, when the customs system covers every border, then that 80% will begin to flow into the formal system. Now, let me address the U.S. influence that the gurus are debating. Since November, Iraqi banks have had to comply with SWIFT international transfer system criteria to access their foreign reserves held at the U.S. Federal Reserve. Muzaffar Saleh, a financial advisor to Prime Minister Soudani, explained that Iraqi banks must now register their dollar transfers on an online platform that reviews every request. The Federal Reserve examines these requests, and if there are any suspicions about the final destination, it stops the transfer. Since this mechanism was adopted, the U.S. Federal Reserve has blocked about 80% of transfer requests due to doubts over where the money was actually going. 80%. This has led to a shortage of dollars on the Iraqi market and the depreciation in the dinar's value on the parallel market. The official rate stands at 1,320 dinars per dollar, while the parallel market trades around 1,570 dinars. Some Iraqi officials, like Hadi al-Amiri, have accused the United States of using the dollar as a weapon to starve nations. But the economist Ahmed Tabakali put it plainly, contrary to current misconceptions, rumors, and misinformation, there is no evidence of U.S. pressure on Iraq. The new regulations require high levels of disclosure and transparency. This came as a shock for many of our banks, who were not used to this. Soudani's government is not fighting the new regulations. It is embracing them. On February 5th, Governor Alaq met with U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Joshua Harris in Baghdad. They discussed dollar sales, banking reforms, and ongoing cooperation aimed at strengthening Iraq's financial and monetary stability. Harris affirmed the United States' full readiness to continue supporting the efforts of the Central Bank of Iraq, enabling it to achieve its goals in enhancing financial and monetary stability. This is the U.S. influence that matters, not pressure, but partnership, not coercion, but cooperation. The United States is supporting Iraq's efforts to clean up its banking sector, force compliance with international standards, and starve the parallel economy of the dollars that sustained it. Now, let me give you the market reality that proves the dinar is being prepared. On February 15th, the central bank issued a directive to all licensed banks and financial institutions emphasizing that applicable laws do not recognize any discrimination between different editions of the U.S. dollar. They stress the importance of reducing the phenomenon of discrimination in the exchange rate between old and new issues, and the need to adhere to approved standards for foreign banknotes. This matters because it eliminates a common excuse used by parallel market operators to justify lower rates for certain dollar bills. The central bank is systematically closing every loophole. The cabinet has also decided to oblige all state bodies to sell goods and services in Iraq in dinars at the central bank's exchange rate of 1,320 to the dollar. Saleh argued that these measures are important as they show that the state is there to protect the market and citizens. The ASYCUDA crackdown is working. On February 8th, hundreds of traders protested in Baghdad, shutting down markets across the capital. They hung banners reading "Customs fees are killing citizens." But the government did not back down. MP Shagadi al-Zaidi dismissed the protests as an attempt to muddy the waters and stated the government would not reverse its implementation of the system. Baha al-Araji, head of the Construction and Development Bloc, explained that many traders previously imported goods through the Kurdistan region, where customs duties were lower and revenues did not reach the federal government. Under the new unified system, traders are now paying customs duties everywhere, including at crossings in the Kurdistan region. He stated that objections were motivated by private interests rather than the public good. The General Authority of Customs announced that revenues exceeded 137 billion Iraqi dinars in January, attributing the increase to the implementation of the new tariff decision across all customs centers. It said revenues were expected to rise further, rejecting social media claims that the new tariff caused revenue losses, stating the reality was entirely the opposite. Now, let me give you the political context that frames this entire preparation. On February 3rd, Bloomberg reported that the United States had warned Iraqi officials that Iraq's access to oil export revenues could be reduced if Nouri al-Maliki is appointed prime minister. The U.S. frustration grew because of al-Maliki's insistence on not stepping back from his candidacy. This matters because Iraq's oil export revenues are deposited in an account at the U.S. Federal Reserve in New York, managed by the central bank. The government uses these funds to cover expenses totaling about $7 billion monthly. Oil revenues account for roughly 90% of Iraq's budget. The U.S. influence is real, but it is not the weaponization of the dollar, it is the leverage of partnership. The United States is using its position to ensure that Iraq's next government is committed to reform, to sovereignty, and to the financial stability that the ASYCUDA crackdown and banking reforms are designed to achieve. So, is Iraq preparing the dinar? The evidence is overwhelming. The reserves are strong at over $100 billion. The gold reserves exceed 76 tons. The customs system is being unified across the entire country. The banking sector is being forced to comply with international standards. The Federal Reserve is cooperating with compliant banks. The government is refusing to back down from reforms despite protests. The central bank is closing loopholes like discrimination between dollar editions. Alaq was asked about the money supply outside banks. He said, if money owners feel reassured about the existence of a fair and transparent tax system, they will bring their money and deposit it in banks. Reassurance. That is what the ASYCUDA crackdown, the U.S. cooperation, and the banking reforms are all designed to create. When that reassurance takes hold, when the shadow economy begins to trust the formal economy, the 80% will start flowing into banks. That inflow of deposits will expand the lending capacity of the banking system. That expanded lending will fuel investment and consumption. That investment and consumption will drive economic growth. And that economic growth will be the fundamental foundation for a stronger currency. Alaq was honest about the exchange rate. He said such a decision would only be considered if Iraq faced an inability to meet demand for foreign currency due to weak reserves. And he explicitly stated that this is not the case at the present time. Not the case at the present time. But the present time is not the future. The present time is the preparation. The present time is the ASYCUDA crackdown. The present time is the U.S. cooperation. The present time is the banking reform. The dinar is being prepared, not for a sudden, dramatic revaluation, but for a stable, sustainable future where the official rate and the real rate are the same rate. The gurus are finally starting to understand this. The question is whether you are ready for what comes next.